Hi, best friends. I'm Tabby.
And I'm Caitlin, and today we will be discussing Haunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton. It is the first of the cat and mouse duet. So
Guys, it is,
a
it's a
couple
lot.
things before it is a lot. A couple disclaimers, which, not to like beat a dead horse or anything, but in case you haven't heard our other disclaimers, this book is intense. It has a lot of potentially triggering topics and like kinks involved. So definitely like before listening to this episode or reading the book, like check those out. Um, and yeah, like the reason we chose this book for spooky season is because it's
It's
scary.
spooky.
So yeah, that's kind of the disclaimer that we'll have here at the top of the episode.
And we do
Um,
just like to remind people that they are practicing, the suspension of disbelief here. So
yes,
anything that we talk about today, like we do not agree with it, but
yes,
for reading purposes, we will be discussing it.
definitely. Like, yeah, I do not condone this behavior in real life. But
But
yeah,
I
very
did
much
enjoy
like
the book.
yeah, it's kind of like reading like a fantasy novel. It's like that's not real. That's not something that exists in the real world. But I enjoy this book for the purposes of entertainment. Um, so yeah, I mean, now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, I will read the back of the book. So it starts off and it says the manipulator, which we'll talk about kind of the significance of that. So the manipulator. I can manipulate the emotions of anyone who lets me. I will make you hurt, make you cry, make you laugh and sigh. But my words don't affect him, especially not when I plead for him to leave. He's always there, watching and waiting, and I can never look away, not when I want him to come closer. And the shadow. I didn't mean to fall in love, but now that I have, I can't stay away. I'm mesmerized by her smile, by her eyes, and the way she moves, the way she undresses. I'll keep watching and waiting until I can make her mine. And once she is, I'll never let her go, not even when she begs me to.
See,
So
I think that's very interesting the way she worded the back of the book because like that is almost the opposite of how I feel in the actual book itself. Like I don't really picture Adeline to be like this master manipulator. Like she
yeah,
just acts like this scared little girl. And whereas
exactly.
like with Zayd in the back of the book there, like he almost sounds like apologetic and he certainly is not.
Yeah, and it's funny because like at one point in the book, Daya even like mentioned she's like basically like what's your like nickname or like who are you? And she's like, I'm the manipulator because she writes novels. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're like, you can manipulate people's emotions. Well, like, yes, in the sense of like when you're writing a book, but in real life, she is the opposite of manipulative, like in her social
Mm-hmm.
interactions.
She is until
So
she isn't though is the thing because like she like Adeline like prides herself on being like this introverted, like socially inept, like creep, basically. But then there's multiple times throughout the book where she's like, yep, and I can just put on this mask and it's totally fine. And I actually have never been socially awkward in my life. And it's
that's
like, where does that
fair.
come from?
She can kind of like act in certain situations. So yeah, maybe there's some truth to it.
But
But
we always like to start with overall ratings for the book.
yeah.
Um, so I gave this book an 8.95 out of 10. Um, I really did enjoy it. It's a very well written book. H.D. Carlton writes nothing but bangers, but she does touch on very heavy subjects in like every single one of her novels. And that's why like I just in good conscience could not give it more than a 9 out of 10 because I mean I did struggle through some of it because it is a lot to like kind of take in, but I thought it was very well done.
I agree. I like this book a lot, but there's just so much of it that it's like it's just hard for me to read.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean it's kind of like a good horror movie. Like a lot of that's hard to consume as well. And so yeah, like I would rate this an 8.5 out of 10. I definitely think that it has like good
Yeah, we've
rereadability.
both read this twice now.
Yes. And I think that like on the second read through, I definitely picked up on some more things about like the nuances of their characters a little bit more. There are just some things that are just not for me about this book, and that's okay.
I really do feel like, though, if you have a personality kind of like Adeline did in the book, you probably got a lot more out of this than we did because we don't get off on being scared.
That is very true. Like, I have fun like in a haunted house. Like, I'm like, wow, this is fun. But I'm not like, wow, I could go take a stranger home and like get
That'd
it
be
on
really
after
cool.
this. Yeah.
So
She's an
yeah, I'm
interesting
sure,
character for
yeah,
sure.
somebody who is into that, like, probably enjoyed this maybe a little bit more than we did.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll kind of start just by like talking about the characters, how we felt about them, kind of what purpose did they serve in the book, even. So starting with our main heroine, Adeline, she wildin'.
Adeline.
She wildin' and like she fully understands what she's doing the whole time throughout the book. Sometimes she's like really pissed at herself for it, but she's into it. She likes having the stalker. She likes having his attention on
Like,
her.
she knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing. She provokes him, and then whenever it comes time for her quote unquote punishment, she gets a little freaked out and she's like, oh shit, oh fuck, I messed up, I
She's
regret
like,
it.
I actually don't want this, and I'm calling the police. He's like, no, you
Yeah.
didn't.
He's like, well, that's too damn bad because like you had your opportunity. But yeah, like she knows exactly what she's doing, but then whenever things escalate, she's hesitant, which, no judgment. I'm not
Fair.
saying
That's a
she doesn't.
complete stranger.
She definitely deserves the right to be scared. But like, girl, you should have thought of that when you were responding to your stalker's text messages.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like maybe if you just packed up and like moved out of the house and like tried to like flee the state, like it probably would have been different. But it's like
yeah,
you were like, no, I'm gonna stay and I'm gonna respond to these texts and I'm gonna like
yeah.
flip them off through the window. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
even though
absolutely,
he's
girl.
like, if you do that, I will come in there and I'll tie you up and I'll like, bite
Punish
you.
you. Yeah.
And she's like, no, you won't. And he's like,
Bitch.
okay, well, I will though.
Yeah, she's kind of got a case of dumb bitchitis, unfortunately.
Yes,
Like the
she
whole thing with
is.
Arch, she's like,
Oh
he's
my
not gonna
God.
cut his hands off. She's like, bet I'll show you. He's like, come on along, Arch, like come back to my haunted mansion. You're not
And
gonna get
then
your
let's
hands
have
chopped
sex
off.
in a glass box for my
Knowing
stalker
that
to
he's
watch.
watching.
Yeah. And then she even like after they fool around in there, she's even like scared to be in the room after that because she's like, okay, I saw him moving out there. So like, okay, he is actually watching. So maybe we should like go to my bedroom. But she doesn't get the chance.
No, but she even at one point was like, what if he's serious? Like, I'll feel kind of bad. So she's like, not bad enough to not do it though.
Yeah, she's like, it's fine. Yeah,
Adeline.
she's a little bit dumb, but like not really. Like just she doesn't have a whole lot of like self-preservation
You know
instincts.
what's like funny though is like out of all of the characters in this book, I think Adeline's like my least favorite.
Yeah. Well, I agree.
And this is like the namesake book, but it's like she makes some terrible choices and she's funny. Like I do love her inner monologue and I can relate to a lot of it and I think it was great. But like just in terms of like her character, it's always like those women that people like obsess over and it's like why?
Yeah. Because I mean, I think the thing is, she's definitely got like some sort of striking beauty about her because
Mhm.
like people notice her. But I think that it's interesting that she's kind of a weirdo.
Mhm.
Like she really is a fucking weirdo. And everyone's like, oh yeah, but she's hot though. And they're just like
Like
into it.
she's a freak and it's like yeah, for sure she is.
Yeah, she definitely is. I don't dislike her.
No, not at
She
all.
just has some things that rub me the wrong way. I'm like, why did you do that? And she will even, like, in her inner monologue, like you're talking about, she'll do something stupid and she's immediately like, why did I do that? like, why do I hate myself? Why did
Like,
God
I
make
get
me this
it.
way? Like, yeah, she knows that she fucked up and she still does it.
I love her freaking like her mom's relationship is awful. And then like Zayd also kind of like makes fun of her about her relationship with her father. He's like, you got like daddy issues. It's like, yeah, she might actually. I don't know.
Yeah, she's like,
Like
I
that's
know my
probably why
dad
she's very open to your
exists.
advances.
Yeah, she's complex. She would benefit from some self-reflection,
Perhaps
some
some therapy.
some therapy.
I
But
don't know.
hey, there
There's
I'm not
nothing
speaking
wrong
for
with
her
being a freak, though.
specifically. There, yeah. So moving on to Zayd because he's worse. Like if
He's
all
a
ends bad.
freak.
There are
Oh
parts of him that I'm
God.
like, okay, in the moment I'm like, oh, that was kind of hot. But like, no. Like in real life, no.
After
For the
I've done
purposes
some
of the book,
self-reflection,
yes. He's definitely like
terrifying.
an anti-hero. Like,
He's a vigilante, 100%.
yeah, he's fucking like Batman and he's
With
Batman,
worse
but
moral values
yeah, I suppose so because he actually like tortures and kills people
and likes it.
and likes it, but not the sound of it. He
No,
doesn't
he
like the
doesn't get
noises.
off. Yeah, he doesn't get off on killing people, but he does. I think likes like the power aspect of it.
Yes,
I
he
don't
likes
know.
that and he likes punishing them for like the bad things that they did.
Hmm. I
Which
do think he has like a god complex.
oh, he does because even when he's like with Adeline, he's like,
Like, I'm
yeah,
a
like I
fucking
am your
god.
god.
Like,
But then
okay.
he's like, it's I can't disagree with him that the people that he's killing are horrible people.
They do probably deserve to not be here.
They do, but then like, you know, does that give him the right to torture and murder them?
But the
I
thing
don't.
is, here's where I can like kind of get behind it because it's like it's already been shown that these people are in higher up positions where they're the ones who should be making decisions about people like that and where they go afterwards. But if they're the
Mhm.
ones who are committing these crimes, who's holding them in check? Nobody. And
Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, like I that's like what it's going to come down to is somebody else taking care of it.
That's true because he targets like very high profile pedophiles and sex traffickers, like
Yeah.
senators and celebrities, like people in high
The
positions.
fucking president.
Yeah, so I get
Yeah,
it.
like they're not going to jail.
I get where he's coming from, but like, could I personally look past that if this were like a real life situation and like date him? I don't know. I don't know if I could.
No, and I think it's because like especially with like the stalking aspect, like he fully understands what he's doing is wrong. He's like, I just don't care. And like he even says, like, I know how fucked up that is to take something without consent. I know that's what I'm fighting against every single day. She hasn't given it to me yet, but she will. I know my mouse better than she knows herself. And so like he knows like this is borderline crossing over into territory that he's actively like fighting against every day.
Yeah.
But it's still just like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. And then even later on, whenever like Adeline starts to like accept him more, he's telling her, I've never pretended to be a good person, but what I did do is create my own fucking morals to live by. I will keep killing every deranged individual who resides on this goddamn planet if it means children don't have to die and you don't have to live in danger. But I mean, I would argue that he's deranged. But again, I understand the difference, I suppose. And he also says, if my redemption resides somewhere within you, then I will spend the rest of my life searching for it inside of you. I will fill every inch of you, Adeline, and in time, my redemption will become your salvation. So again,
I
like
mean,
that God
he do be
complex.
down bad.
Yeah, he is like, I will worship the ground you fucking walk on, but you don't have a say in the matter. Like, I will not be leaving your side.
God, it's just like it is a lot.
Yeah.
Like I love like in books, like obviously like not even like the controlling aspect of it, but like the more dominant side. Like
Hmm.
I totally get behind that. But it's like when like the devious consent aspect comes into it
Yeah.
is where I have a really hard time like kind of finding the boundary because it's like, yes, being told what to do awesome. They don't want it, you're doing it. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's like the line that this book is crossing for sure. And with Addie's like we have access to her thoughts, and she is very much like, I don't like that I feel this way. I do not want to be like intimate with him, but like her body is reacting in a certain way that like in the moment it makes her like want to do it after it's been like pried from her. Um, which is not like that's not her consenting. Like that's her
It's
body
almost
like
like a
reacting.
coping memechanism for her body, and like
Yeah.
her brain hasn't quite caught up to it. And it's like, I feel like that happens a lot in like trauma victims too. It's like your
Yeah.
body's going to cope different than your brain does.
Exactly, because he's like seeing that he's like, "Oh,
She
she's
wants
wet for
me.
me. She wants this." But no, that's not what she said. That's how you're interpreting the situation, but that's not what she said. In fact, she said the opposite. She told you to get off of her. She told you to stop, like all of these things. So it's like it's hard for me to like to empathize with him too much.
Well, and I put this down too, in the things we didn't like, but I guess we can go ahead and talk about it here too. He even says, like, I wouldn't have pursued her if she didn't want it. She wouldn't have texted back if she weren't interested. And it's like, my guy, that is how rapists like justify their actions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're like, well, obviously you wanted it because of all of these things that you did that I interpreted
No, it's
the
like
way
if
I
you
wanted
have
to.
to justify your actions, it probably wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, 100%. Like if there's this much confusion and like topic of discussion around whether or not it was consensual, then
It
it
probably
probably was not
wasn't.
consensual. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. So that part makes it hard to like accept him as a character.
But then he like turns around and like has this very soft side, and like you see kind
Yes.
of like the wounded animal side of him. It's like, especially when he like comes in that one night, and it's like, obviously he's very off, and he admits, like they lost like a little girl that night, and that he's taking it personally, and that like basically it makes him feel worthless. And so it's like there is like a humanity inside of him, but it's just
Mhm.
like, does that, counteract all the bad things that you do still?
Right. It's very much like you have to kind of, I don't know, you have to again suspend your disbelief because it's like in real life, if I knew this man, like I would not want him in my life. I would not
No,
want to be around him. But
it's
like for the
very
purposes
toxic.
of the story, like I get the things that are like playing to our emotions. I get the reasons we're supposed to be like, oh, I can understand what he's thinking. Like I can empathize with him as a character. So it's like, again, you just have to consider this as not being real life and like how you
And it's
yourself
like,
would react.
when he's not being like a creepy stalker either, it's like he has a fantastic inner monologue, and like seems like a very normal person, and like it's very fun to like read like his point of view in the story. It's just like when he kind of like steps into, because like his whole thing was that like he wanted her to see the dark and ugly so that she could love like all parts of him. And it's like, I feel like that maybe wasn't the way to go about it. Like I guess I understand what he's
Yeah.
doing, but like
Yeah.
it
He's
seems a
like,
bit
well,
extreme.
I don't want to lie to you about who I am. And she's like, okay, but like you could have, and
But
I
like
probably
if
would have
you
liked that
had, it would
better.
been all right.
You probably could have like held off with this information.
Because like she's a freak too, and I feel like if he would have just busted that out in the bedroom, she'd have been like, "Fuck yeah!" But like,
Yeah.
no, he made it his whole
Yeah.
personality.
I think if they had dated for a few months and she was like fully into him and he broke the news to her that he's like a vigilante, she probably would have been like, okay.
Like, it's really hot, babe.
Yeah, she'd
Amazing.
be like, bet. And
Yeah,
like we wouldn't have to deal with the stalking shit.
I don't know. Flawed characters. They're both exceptionally flawed characters.
Yeah, which honestly, maybe that means that they're made for each other.
Maybe you guys go off in your own little fucked up world. Like, good for
Yeah.
you.
And then I did also see you mention here like the fact that he like straight up tries to just adopt a little girl at the end and like, Addie, you're a mom now.
He's like, I'm not gonna like, make that decision for us, but also I'm making that decision for us. And he's like, you surprised, Shotty, you're a mom.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh."
Like, okay.
There's some really good supporting characters in the book too that I freaking love.
Fucking
So,
Jay.
Jay, our king, like, okay, so Jay and Ruby are characters that are really important for like Z's operations. So Jay is like, he's Penelope from Criminal Minds, like he's hacking shit. He knows all the 411. He knows it
Like
all.
Penelope, he is a punk rock princess with
100%.
his, painted nails and black leathers.
They have the exact same fashion sense.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then
Um,
Ruby is, I think hers is the funniest character out of all of them because
yeah.
she basically used to babysit Zayd. Like it was one of his mom's best friends. And he was like, hey, listen, we're doing some illegal shit. Like, do you want in? And she's like, yeah, I've got nothing better to do.
She's like, absolutely, I do. Yeah, so her role is like whenever they bust an operation and they like, get the girls to freedom, like she is the motherly figure that is there to help make them feel comfortable as they're getting them to safety.
She's a little
Um,
old lady.
she's just a sweetheart, and it's just so funny because at one point Zayd was like, I do not want a drop of blood to get on these little girls. And one of them accidentally steps in a puddle of blood, and she's like, oh, sweetheart, watch your step. Like,
You're not supposed to do that. And she's like, I'm dying later.
she's like, please, you're gonna get me in trouble with my boss.
Sweet, sweet child. Best friend Daya is a true homie. A true homie who
For
also
real.
works for Zayd
Yes, but doesn't know him personally.
till really the end of the book.
Yeah.
She kind of suspected though, because she's really smart. She kind of like honestly, Adeline did not figure out a single thing this entire book. Daya did all of it for her. She
Yeah,
was like, I took the liberty of sending this stuff off for you. You're welcome.
Adeline is not the brains of the operation, but that's okay. That's why they work as a team. They're besties for a reason.
She's a supporting character in her own main character novel.
Yes, yeah, a little bit sometimes. Daya is so non-judgmental too, which cracks me up because Addie is like explaining to her, like, yeah, like some things happened. Like the stalker broke in and like ate me out. And at first I didn't like it, but then by the end of it, I was like really into it. And Daya's like, okay.
Okay.
She's like, okay, well, I just need to like make sure that like you're safe because you will not leave this fucking house for some reason, even though this man breaks in on the reg. And she's like, I just need to know that like this is where you want to be in life. And she's like, yeah. And Daya's like, okay, perfect. Just call me if anything changes.
So awesome. Like offer still stands like at any given time.
Yeah, like like you can call me at 3 a.m. and change your mind. That's cool. I'm there. And that I
Yeah.
expect you to.
A real MVP. A real
Yeah.
MVP. Um, freaking Gigi. I've got a lot to say about Gigi.
Yeah.
So Gigi is Adeline's great grandmother, who was murdered mysteriously in the house that she is living, Parsons Manor, by what we assumed at one point in time was her stalker, but we find out later it was not. So Gigi sucks.
Yeah.
Like she is quite literally the worst character in this whole book. She is making herself out to be a victim when
Yep.
in fact she is the root cause of any and all problems in her life. So, stalker comes along. She's like, yeah, I'm into this for sure. Starts seeing her stalker and she's like, my husband's getting suspicious. Like, I don't even know why. Like, that's crazy. But anyway, I'm going to go sleep my stalker. Start sleeping with her stalker. And she's like, yeah, my husband is like treating me poorly.
Yeah.
Like he is upset. I have no idea why, and it's starting to affect our marriage. Crazy. And it's like, yeah, that's fucking crazy, Gigi.
And she's like, for some reason, he's like coping with alcohol and gambling. Like,
Yeah.
that's a horrible, like, she's like, how could he? Like, that's so immoral and wrong.
Yeah, it's like, how dare you not provide for this family that I care so deeply about?
Yeah.
And then it's like he starts like losing it because, you know, she's lying to his face and he feels like he is going absolutely crazy because he obviously knows something is wrong. And she's like gaslighting him essentially. And she's like,
Yeah.
John, how could you even think that? I love you. And so loses all their money, can't pay the mortgage. And she was like, how dare you ruin this family?
Yeah. She's like, I gave you
What?
everything. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. And then, like, unbeknownst to her, the fucking man that she's been seeing, well, she has an idea that, like, his job is dangerous, but she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know the extent of it because, like, he can't tell her shit like that. But unbeknownst to her, her lover saves their ass financially and gets her husband a job like in the fucking mafia that he was a part of because he's like, I can't let you become homeless. So he starts
Then
working.
how, like, what house am I going to go visit Gigi at?
Yeah, he's like, God, if she becomes homeless, like, then
How
damn,
embarrassing.
like, she won't be as hot anymore if she doesn't have like a house to sleep in and
Like,
shit.
she can't come live with me.
Yeah, so she is like, weird, like, our money problems kind of randomly went away. So that's great. But then she's like, for some reason, though, like, John's still mad at me. And now his best friend Frank is mad because John, like, accused her of cheating in front of Frank. And so she's like, well,
And
Frank,
he
why are
acted
you upset?
very strangely towards it.
She's like, Frank, what's got your panties in a bunch that I'm cheating on your best friend? And yeah, it turns out there's more to
She
his
deserved
motives.
everything that happened to her.
Yeah, she is an asshole. And it's so funny because like I kind of like got the idea from how Adeline and her mom speak about like the issues in their family. Like Adeline's mom is like, well, your great grandmother was an idiot. She went and got herself
Was an
killed.
absolute hoe.
Yeah. And Adeline's like, whoa, what? Because like these are things that she just didn't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so Adeline's like, what do you mean? Like, there's no way because my Nana, her, Gigi's daughter, she's like, she loved her so much, she cared about her so much. Like, there's no way she could have been a bad person or a bad mom. And then she like reads these diary entries and she's like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Like,
no, she kind of was also a bad person. Because
yeah,
it's like, I do
she
think Nana, like, probably loved her,
mhm.
but also, like, I'm sure she felt like some immense relief when she died.
Oh, I'm sure because like things just kept escalating. And at one point in the diary entries,
She
it's
was being
like
abused.
yeah, and she was begging her mom to like make up with her dad because she's 15 years old and all she knows is like, here's why dad's upset and dad's taking it out on me. So she's like begging her mom to like fix their marriage. Of course, Gigi doesn't want to fix
She's
their
like,
marriage.
how could you be so selfish and ask me to
Yeah,
do
she's like,
something
don't
like
you care
that?
about mommy's happiness? It's
And
fucked.
so then, yeah, I'm sure that like heavily affected like Nana's relationship with Addie's mom.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
she maybe probably wasn't the best mom because she also did not have a good idea of what being a good mom was.
Right. And then, of course, Adeline's mom is
And
like
that
not
trickles
the
down
best
to
mom.
Adeline.
Generational trauma is real. To give a little bit of credit to Adeline's mom, who's named Serena, by the way, and we
Which
can
we
literally,
literally didn't know that.
yeah, we were like, I think it's Caroline. Nope, it's not.
She'll
It's
always be
Serena.
Caroline to me.
Yeah, so Caroline, Serena, whatever you want to call her, she, of course, comes across as a judgmental bitch because she acts that way. But like deep down, she's really like, she's afraid for Adeline. She doesn't want her in that house that's like, that she sees as a place of like misery and like,
Certainly haunted.
yeah, it definitely, it's literally and figuratively haunted. So, yeah, she definitely was scared for Addie. And so that's kind of why she was reacting that way.
I do like that she ended up helping her though. I was like, wow, you
Hmm.
shady bitch. Like, I love you. She's just like, did you send this to me? And she's like, you have your secrets and I have mine, Addie. And like hangs up the phone. Like, see you at
Yeah,
Thanksgiving, girl.
I know. They're dynamic. It needs
Serena.
it needs worked on, but it's low key wholesome.
Yeah, like she's still gonna help her because that's her daughter. Like she's not gonna not help her. I really
Yeah.
do think she has her best interests at heart. I do also think she's an extremely selfish mother.
Right. She just doesn't know how to like channel any of her like emotions properly
She's
or
not
communicate.
caring.
Yeah, she's not. She's not a maternal person. And then
um,
Sybil, bro.
oh my God. She scared me. Out of literally anybody else in this book, she probably scared me the most.
Yeah, she's terrifying. She's way scarier than Zaid. She might not be as physically powerful, so I
She's
guess she's
got
got that going
nothing
for
to
her.
lose.
But even Zaid was a little scared of her.
Like,
Um,
yeah,
he's
she's
like,
like
shit.
up here, like stabbing a grown ass man, like just until he's like a bloody pulp, and he's like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, he's like, well, Jesus Christ. Yeah, so Sybil, H.G. Carlton has as a book called Satan's Affair that's kind of like it takes place before all of this happens,
It's like a
but
novella.
yeah, I think it might be a novella. But it's
Okay.
about Sybil and like, her journey. And she also appears more in the second book of the Cat and Mouse duet. So we'll
Which I have
definitely,
not read yet. So
yeah, we'll talk more about her. But yeah, she's scary as fuck. Love her though.
love you, girl. Sibby. I love that she's just like, I'll fucking take the fall. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, 100%. She's
She's
like,
like,
yeah,
my henchman will save me. It's like, bitch,
my
you
henchman will break me out of
crazy.
prison. But to be continued, there's more on Sybil in the future.
So excited to read about her.
Crazy, crazy queen. We already kind of talked about everything that goes on in Gigi's diary. So I won't like read the entries, but I kind of was keeping notes to,
Yeah.
construct a narrative here. But basically the diary entries, they take place over the course of like 2 years, from like 1944 to 1946. And it just kind of explains like her relationship, how it came to be with Ronaldo, and then like how it slowly deteriorated her marriage, and then eventually like led to like a strange relationship with Frank, who we hate Frank.
Who, plot twist, is the murderer.
Yeah, he fucking killed her because he's a jealous prick. He's like, if you are going to cheat on your husband, it needs to be with me.
He's
And
like, I
Gigi
didn't
was
even want
like,
you to marry your husband, but that's my best friend, so I'll let it slide. But I'll be damned if you cheat on both of us with a stalker.
yeah, he's like, I'll be fucking damned. So yeah, his selfish ass murders her, like blames it on John because he's like, yeah, John just snapped. He knew that she was cheating on him. And of course he's like the fucking police. Like, is he the chief of police?
Yeah, he's like, we're just gonna brush this. Is he the
Yeah.
sheriff?
He's definitely involved in the police department. I don't remember his exact role, but he's like, yeah, like I will murder this woman and then blame it on my best friend and it'll all be good.
And that's
Um,
how that'll go. But yeah, the diary entries just filled me with rage.
yeah,
And like
yeah.
they were definitely used like as a parallel between like at first what was happening between Gigi and Ronaldo and Addie and Zayd, and
Hmm.
then like took a complete turn because he was like, I'm gonna kill you. And she was like, Gigi's stalker did. He's like, are you so certain? Like,
Yeah, because she's like, well, clearly, like, who else would have the motive to do it? She's like, it couldn't have been John because he loved her too much. And it's like, well,
he didn't though. Because if you were reading the same diary entries I was reading, he
but
certainly did
also
not.
that's also just like not like it's not like you can say, oh, it couldn't have been the spouse because they loved him too much because like that's usually who did it. So like I don't know
like
why she was so
70% of the time.
yeah. Anyway, as we already mentioned, Adeline's a little bit dumb and kind of slow to connect the
She is
dots.
so dumb. She did not figure literally any of this out.
Yeah, she had Daya and her mom and I guess Mark a little bit like helping her because like whenever he explained, yeah, like I'm Frank's son and all this shit, she was
She's
like,
like,
I
this is
know.
connected somehow. Oh
Yeah, she's like, I just know it.
my God, she's so stupid. Um,
Love her.
so we'll talk about some of the things that we liked, as always, in the books. The spice. It was some top tier spice. If you're looking past the creep factor, some of it was not good spice, but some
Yes.
of it was. specifically like we'll talk the House of Mirrors, which was kind of like the first time that Adeline like truly accepted that she was in fact like into what Zaid was offering, and it was a fully consensual like moment together.
Yes.
Um, so that was very nice. Love that for her that she
Mm-hmm.
was able to make a choice in that moment. I feel like if she had said no, it probably would have still happened,
Yeah,
um
unfortunately, that's our issue with our boy Zaid.
but that was fully consensual. I also am a big fan. Okay, so just in general, like a big fan of like the primal play type kinks.
Mm-hmm.
Which primal play, for everyone who doesn't know, is basically like whenever you like kind of get in touch with like not even like the animalistic side, but just like the more like fucking like hunter prey type
Yeah.
moment. And so like either like them like running through the forest or like him chasing like her through the house. Like I do enjoy like that aspect of the spice.
Yeah, definitely. He like, well, because this is one of my favorite scenes, but also one of my least favorite scenes is the first time that he like is in her house and like tells her to like come find him. And they do like a whole thing. He's like, go hide. If I find you, then you have to
I get
accept
to
your
fuck
punishment.
you.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, like he'll never find me. She's hiding. Of course he finds her. She
She's
tries to
slamming
run
every door in the
again.
house.
Yes, she's like, I'm so quiet right now. I'm so stealthy. And literally, she's like an elephant in a china shop. Then she runs again. Of course, when he catches her, that's when the fucking shit takes off that I'm not about. That's the gun scene.
Oh, the gun scene. The gun
Yeah.
scene nearly turned me off the book the first time. Like I
Yes.
almost was like, I don't think I can continue on, but I did, and I'm glad I did, but like
Yeah.
that was a lot.
And we'll talk about that more when we get to things we disliked. Some more things that we did like as far as the spicy scenes, are concerned. The knife play is a little more like acceptable to me. Not like acceptable, that's not the right word. Like a little more
I think that's a little safer. It's a little
preferred
more
for me.
controlled of a if we're gonna choose like a violent kink, like I'd prefer
Yes.
it be a knife than a gun.
Exactly. It's more preferred for me. And then another one that I was like, oh yeah, this is just 10 out of 10 is the time that he breaks in while she's sleeping and ties her up while she's still asleep. Um,
See, I'm not into that, but
yeah, I was like 10 out of 10, but I can totally understand how that's also a no because she was telling him to stop the entire time. So I
she's
did
like,
not
I
love that.
really don't want to be tied up. And he's like, that is really too bad.
Yeah, and of course we've already talked about how we don't like that in general, so that affects it. Um,
Um, I'm actually going to skip through to one of these because I'm really excited to talk about it. So I love the allusions to the Jeffrey Epstein case throughout this
mhm.
entire book. So obviously we have like the society that like steals children and like sells them to absolutely sadistic fucked up individuals to do with them as they please. And that is essentially what was happening with like Jeffrey Epstein and like this island that he had. So like they were trafficking girls. He had somebody who was like the main point of contact for like getting them like recruited and getting them to this island, which I kind of think is maybe what Mark's wife was doing. I can't be sure because like he the only thing that like kind of led me to believe that was whenever he saw like Sybil sitting on the bench, like he made a comment to his wife about something, but we're not sure what it was. And
Mm.
she went off, and then the other four guys like got captured or whatever and killed. But like we didn't really hear from Mark's wife again. And I could be totally wrong, but like I don't know if he was kind of using her as like that type of person to like make them feel like comfortable and like kind of corral them into getting kidnapped. But that's what was happening with Jeffrey Epstein's case. And some of the things that were mentioned in this book directly reflect some of the things that happened in his case. So one of the characters' names was Tim Banks. And a big thing that was talked about during the Epstein case was that Tom Hanks was one of the people on the ledger that would go to Epstein's island. And so
Mm-hmm.
I obviously think she did that on purpose. And then with the child sacrifice, it was revealed that a lot of the people who went to Epstein's island were also participating in child sacrifice and were like, drinking the blood of children and like murdering them, doing whatever they wanted to with them, which is super fucked up. Um, and specifically like the Clintons and like Ellen DeGeneres were like top of the list for those. And then the last one was on page 591. They talked about like this abstract painting of a girl like crying blood. An interview that Ellen was doing while she was like on leave from her show while everything was being investigated. She had this painting in her home that was like an abstract painting of a child being like dismembered on a table. And that reminded me of that in the book. And so I really do feel like she took a lot of aspects from this case and
That's so creepy.
was kind of trying to bring to light, that this shit like happens in real life.
Yeah. And that's what's like so freaking disturbing about this book. And that's what makes it like, that's the part of us that I think does empathize with Zaid and the work that he's doing. It's like, yes, he is torturing and murdering people, but these people are doing unspeakable things
Right.
to harm
They do deserve
children
it.
and women. So it's like that's the part of us that empathizes with vigilante justice. And that makes sense that that's something that is normal for people to empathize with.
For sure.
But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned like kind of how you think Mark's wife is tied into things and stuff too. And like, of course, I've read the second book, so like I know more than you do at this point. But like, I'm excited to talk more about like the developments of the second book and how that also relates to kind of things in the real world, like the Epstein case and that and that kind of thing. Another thing just about this book that I really enjoy in a book is like the haunted mansion, like ghost vibes. I freaking love like supernatural, like spooky things. And of course that makes this book even more perfect for Halloween because it takes like that supernatural horror and then layers it with like real life horror. And so that's what makes this book so freaking terrifying. And I love it.
I also love a book that does not have like a straightforward plot. So like I love it when you start off a book thinking it's going to go one way and then you get to the end of it and you're like, how the fuck did we get here?
Yeah.
Because like it starts off with obviously it's going to be creepy and she has a stalker whatever, but like I really thought they were going to focus a lot more on like the haunted aspect and more about like Gigi's murders and like it was somehow going to tie into everything else, but then it ends with like her getting kidnapped and it comes full circle with like Mark from the bar and somehow like Zaid and Jay get in trouble and like they meet this person who they obviously know, and so it just ends on like this crazy cliffhanger, and that is my favorite type of book when I genuinely don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, because Addie had like these dangers like coming at her from so many angles. Like whenever she took Archie home and then got tied up with like that, like, crime lord, like, I don't know, circle of people, she made enemies there, but then she also caught the attention of what's referred to as the society. And so Mark was explaining like when Zaid was torturing him, like, look, she was already marked by the society, like they want her.
And it's like, whoa, what?
And it's like, who the fuck is that? So Zaid is like, I cannot fucking keep this woman safe. Like this is, and so he's like nervous because he wants her to be okay. And so he like is teaching her self-defense lessons and all this stuff. Zaid, as like much of a danger as he presents himself to be towards Adeline, is actually protecting her from
like genuinely wants her to be safe.
Yeah, he's protecting her from the people who actually want to harm her. And so that's like something that we start to see by the end.
He just likes scaring her.
Yes, he likes scaring her.
Because he knows that there's a reaction associated with it.
Yeah. But that leads us into the things that we disliked, which of course
there's a couple.
Bruh, I cannot get over the gun. It is so upsetting. And even on my second read through, I was like, this is just like, no wonder this had me so freaked out the first time I was reading, because it's like the first time
it was like a loaded gun too.
Yeah. And it's the first time they do anything physical. That is literally how we get introduced to it. And I was like, if
Like
this is what the book is going to be like, I can't do it.
when she's like defying him and stuff, like gun shoved up inside her and he cocks it,
Yeah.
I audibly like gasped
Yeah. Are we
because
certain it
I
was
really
loaded?
did.
Like,
Yeah,
do we know?
I mean, he didn't like he just pulled it out of the back of his pants. Like he didn't.
But maybe he just brought an unloaded gun to mess with her.
I highly doubt it
I just don't know because it's like, why would you take that fucking risk?
because he's a psychopath.
Oh my God, it's just so scary.
Maybe
And
the safety was on. I don't know.
maybe, but
I would hope the safety was on.
there's nothing about that is attractive to me. Like that whole scene was a turn off. Like at that point, it's
What
like the
a
stuff leading
terrible
up to
way
it.
to go.
Oh, I know. And Adeline even considers that. She's like, at least with a gun to my head, I know I would die instantly. But she was like, what is like, I can't
Like this
imagine
is
getting
gonna just rip
shot in
through
the
my middle and like I'll
yes.
bleed out slowly.
God, I was just like, because leading up to that, it was like, yeah, like I'm into this. He's like chasing her around the house. She's trying to hide from him. I was like, oh, this is like, yeah,
He's like
I'm
a
into this.
very safe stalker. And he even said, like, I would never let anything happen to her. Like, I'll show her like a safe way to have rough sex.
And then,
That ain't it, man.
yeah, I was like, God, did he have like a something happen
Did
that
you
day?
get
Like,
dropped on your
why?
head as a baby? Like,
Yeah, did you sustain a head injury as a child? Because that is
did you get off on
inappropriate
like
behavior.
killing cats? Like,
Oh, don't fuck with cats. Have you
don't
watched
fuck
that
with cats.
documentary?
Yeah. I truly believe that most serial killers did sustain head injuries and like practice some sort of like animal
It's a
abuse.
thing. It's a thing. Like there's kind of like a common like yes they'll either
Denominator.
have like tortured animals or other like children that are like younger than them or they will have a history of wetting the bed well into their childhood or like a head injury and of course
Mm-hmm.
like have their own abuse like
Yeah.
inflicted upon them like some sort of traumatic childhood experience.
Yep.
So yeah, 100%.
I do
Zayd
believe that.
was this close to just being a serial killer,
Like
which
you
I mean, he
are
is
one head injury shy of
technically
being a
is.
serial killer.
Yeah, and technically he is a serial killer.
And like your
But
parents did love you.
yes, yeah. He even says that, yeah, like my parents, I had a good childhood. My parents loved me. They
They
hugged me
did
and
die
stuff.
tragically.
Yeah, that's true.
Like maybe that affects it. I don't know. I'm grasping
Bro,
for
I don't
straws here.
know.
I'm trying to justify this for you, man, and like there is just nothing here to excuse that behavior.
The only thing that like does allow me to excuse it is kind of like Dexter, how he's like, oh, he's
Like
only killing other
you are
predators.
doing good in the
Yeah.
world.
But then it's like,
God.
is he
Ugh.
though? It's like it's a whole debate. Anyway,
So we've already talked about the society. It made my stomach hurt reading about it. Like
yeah.
the actual like child murdering and like drinking the blood and like how they're like, yeah, for our main course, here's this 5-year-old.
Yep.
Like we're gonna rape her and then we're gonna eat her. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God.
Yeah. Like it could
Oh my
not be more
God.
horrifying, honestly. Like I can't think of anything more horrifying than this like aspect of the book. Like the
Oh,
stalking is like whatever.
whatever.
The society, that's the real horror of this book.
Like, oh my God. I also there was like one kink that I just can't really get behind. And
Yeah.
like the gunplay, I don't know, that may be a kink. I don't know. If you're into that, please be safe. But
Please.
like just make sure it's unloaded, I guess. Um,
Or just use like a fake one.
I don't know. Or just don't do it. Like maybe seek psychological help. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um,
That's like actually potentially harmful to you.
so there was yeah, like you should like there's gunpowder on that maybe, and it's like that doesn't need to be up in your cooch. Like that's gonna really throw
That's
off your
bad.
pH levels
Yeah, the
and
pH balance. Oh, come on.
like think of yourself. What I didn't like, it was in the theater room. And so basically like Zayd puts on like a scary movie for Adeline because he's like, I already know like how this is going to end. But then he like starts this whole like daddy, like baby girl type talk. And I was like, hey, listen, I hate that as it is, but Like, he's basically like, let daddy take care of you. And she's like, are you my daddy? And he's like, yeah, and you're my baby girl. And it's like, bro, you literally murder child rapists and people who probably talk to actual children like that. So I
Yeah.
just think it's pretty fucked up that you would even like consider like talking like that.
Yeah, it's so like out of left field for him because
Yeah,
like
like at no point in time has he ever brought that up, and he never does again after that either.
yeah. I really, really also hated that, especially because of his like, like what he does. Like he takes down child
They
rapists
were
and
literally in a child rapist house.
yeah,
Like that was in poor taste.
it really was. So I agree. Another thing that I just like, I hate whenever books do this in general, and this book did it at least once. I didn't like keep track, but I did notice it at one point. Referring to eyes as orbs.
Multiple times.
I don't like that. And so, like, at one point, she's like, I love the way his fiery orbs trace over my body.
Her
Like, no.
cinnamon orbs tracked me across.
Yeah, it's just gross, and we don't need to do that.
Also, his
It's just
eyes
eyes.
weren't fiery. One was literally white and one was black.
Yeah, I think it was fiery, like that he was like heated, but like still, no, it's a
Okay,
no for me.
sure. Orbs. Just say
Orbs.
eyes. You don't gotta be
Yeah.
special. I hated the reference creamy multiple times, and it was
Hmm.
used in many different ways. He talked about her creamy thighs.
Yeah, her
Don't know what that.
skin.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And then he also referred to her as being creamy when she was wet.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I somehow hated that even more.
Yeah, I hated any way it was used to describe her, but I agree. Like that should only be used to describe like
Ice cream,
inanimate objects.
butter,
Yes. Um,
not someone's vagina.
not someone's vagina and not someone's skin either. Like that's just come on.
Like, are you gonna eat her too? Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not the
Are
good
you a
way?
cannibal who also has like this like pedophilic, well, I'll say borderline pedophilic kink? Um,
Fuck.
anyway, so next, we're going to just kind of talk about some of the devices used throughout the book. So we already kind of talked about the parallels between Adeline Stalker and her great grandmother. So those lined up for a while, where it was like she was seeing him outside the window and she was excited, but like scared. And then eventually, like he came in and she was into it. So same thing was happening between her and her grandmother. And then there are quite a few symbols throughout the book, but just some of the more obvious ones. The house itself, Parsons Manor. Addie is like, she feels comfortable in this house, like, even though it's haunted. In fact, like, the ghosts there make her feel even more comfortable.
Like the attic is like paranormal activities, like base camp.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, Gigi." But she just becomes obsessed with solving her great grandmother's murder, and like it's
Ends up
just
like them.
it's a place that like she feels like she can't leave, like she just feels like she belongs there and she has a mission to like solve her grandmother's murder. Anyway, so the diary itself, it's kind of like a link between her and her great grandmother, who she never got to meet in person. But it shows her how similar they really are. And then it also kind of like is a reflection into her own mind because she was having those same thoughts of like, it's so wrong for me to be like excited by this, but like I want him to come back, like I want to see him again. Um,
I really truly think though, if she hadn't thought Gigi was murdered by her stalker, she would have been way more open to the idea of Zayd stalking her.
That's true, because she really did like it. She was like,
Because Gigi did too.
mm-hmm.
And she's like, fuck yeah, like let's do it. But then
But
she's
then
like,
she
oh
was
shit,
like,
he might be killed
shit.
her.
Oh, like you got murdered, dog. Maybe I should be more careful. Um, and then the roses. So when Zayd would break in, he would leave her a rose. Is of course a universal symbol of romance and love, but some like specific to Zayd is he does trim the thorns off, which kind of shows that as much as he is a psychopath, he doesn't want her to get hurt by things. Like he wants her
He
little
wants to be
fingers
the
to
one
be
to hurt
safe.
her.
Yeah, he's like, I need to be the one inflicting pain. Like this rose cannot do it. But also, the rose does symbolize Zayd's love for his mother. So
Freud would have had an absolute field day with this one.
I do feel like there's a lot to unpack there, and maybe that's something for a different day. Um, but then lastly, I did want to talk about the House of Mirrors because I like this scene and I like how symbolic it is because it is again the first time that Addie is fully consenting to have sex with Zayd. So she in this House of Mirrors, they are surrounded by mirrors. And he like forces her to watch everything that they're doing. So he's like, look in the mirrors, and she's like watching, but it's like she's like seeing a reflection of like her true desires and like that she's finally accepting like her like
And it was
desire to
really
be
hot.
with him. Yeah. And the scene itself is just great because it's like,
It's
okay, well,
really good.
I can finally get behind this because she's finally like, yes, I want to fuck this man. And I'm like, get it then, queen.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Consent, we love it.
Yeah.
We've heard of her.
We've heard of her as Zayd. I don't know.
The other device that we see quite a bit throughout this book is the use of kinks. And so I think each kink is kind of used like a different time too, just to kind of play more into like the control aspect of like what's happening at the time. So like when we see like the knife play and the gun play, the bondage, breath play, like all of that is like Zayd trying to control like what Addie's doing, and so she basically does not have a say in like what's going on. And so usually you'll see more of like the BDSM type vibes whenever Zayd wants to be in control and is not going to take like no for an answer.
Mhm.
And then with like the primal play, the stalking, all that, like I feel like with the primal play, like he does use that a lot at the beginning, but towards the end, whenever he's like just telling her to run just for the fun of it because he wants to chase her, like that's both of them like kind of giving into their baser
Yes.
needs.
Yeah. And
um
sometimes Addie will even instigate it and she's the one that
she'll
runs
run,
on
yeah.
purpose. Yeah.
And like because she knows that he'll chase her and he'll catch her, and
Yeah.
she's into that, and I get it, that's cool. And then with like the voyeurism, again, I think that's more of like a control thing. And so like them, having sex in the hall of mirrors or like the movie theater, like she likes the idea that somebody like could walk in at any point in time, and it gives her like a sense of freedom because she's
Yeah.
choosing to do that. And so I just think it's really interesting how she used like the different kinks throughout the book.
Yeah. And a lot of those kinks are like, I'm not going to say all of them are common because some of them seem a little niche to me. However, a lot of
Yeah.
them are more common kinks as well, like BDSM and
Mm-hmm. That's
like
always done in a
voyeurism.
very consensual way, typically, though. Like, there's a lot of
Typically,
ground rules when it comes to BDSM. And so I think that was almost like a bastardization of
I do agree
BDSM.
because it's more like that, like you're saying, like the dub con was kind of more the way it was leaning at the
Yeah. Like,
and
at
like
least with BDSM, like, they know, like, they're going to, like, fight it during it, but
yes.
it has all been predetermined prior to.
Yes, like people who are like fully into it, they even have like fucking contracts and shit. Like
Yeah.
so they
Like,
know like what's okay and what's not.
it's like
Um
you're saying, like, don't stop, like, at any given time. But like with them, he's just like, yeah, no, we're not going to, so don't
yeah.
even try.
Yeah, so it is definitely not the same
No.
thing. But that's kind of what it's like inspired by, I guess you could
Yeah, for
say.
sure.
The thing that we started doing with these books last time is that we're going to do a little bit of a question section and discuss the book even further.
And we want you guys
Um,
to be very interactive with this as well. So even though we are going to be answering our own questions, we also would love for you guys to, submit your thoughts and feelings about these too.
yes, definitely. We want to hear your like opinions and how they might differ from ours. So email us at thesisterswarden@gmail.com.
Question one. Do you believe in ghosts? This is kind of a multi-part question. Do you believe in ghosts? What role do the ghosts play in Adeline's life? And why do you think Adeline is so comfortable in the haunted house when her mom is clearly not?
So first of all, yes, I do believe in ghosts.
Same.
I have never personally had a supernatural experience. However,
I do every day in this house.
oh, really? You
Mm-hmm.
think your house is haunted?
I don't think it's haunted. I feel like haunted is a derogatory term, but I do think there is.
You think there's like some kind of presence there, though,
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we named her, which I guess you're not supposed to do, but
Oh, I could see how that
um
could potentially be dangerous.
like yeah, you're like giving it power or whatever, but no, like we have friendly ghosts.
Huh. I've never lived anywhere where that's happened to me,
Mm,
but I'm very like open-minded and I love to go like places that are considered to
like
be more likely
Atchison.
to be haunted. Yes, so actually Atchison, Kansas, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that place. I did live there for a couple years as a child.
Did.
I didn't have anything happen to me again personally, but there are just so many local legends of like ghost stories
There's a
there.
whole
Like,
ghost tour that we've been on.
oh yes, yes. Like they do a little trolley tour. It's very cool. So yeah, you guys should visit. But yeah, like when I went on vacation to Florida, we went to a local ghost tour there. Like I
Mhm.
love to learn about like the local like hauntings
Yeah.
and also like potentially like be in a position where I might experience, some kind of like interaction with like some sort of supernatural spirit, but I never have.
Yeah, so like with ours, like I said, it's not been like anything scary, but I mean it's like kind of like weird like when I'm by myself and it happens. I'm just like, oh.
Hmm.
But like every now and then we'll hear like a woman's voice just like kind of talking. And
Ooh.
then like if it's like really quiet. And then we used to have this piano in our basement and like I could sometimes like hear it like playing in the middle of the night.
Wow. That
Yeah.
honestly, that's like,
It's like not the worst thing that could happen.
no, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of fun because it's like so harmless.
Mhm.
Like,
No, I don't mind it.
yeah, like you're just coexisting.
Mhm. I was like,
Um,
cool, a friend's here.
but yeah, like I honestly didn't know that, but
But
that's so
mhm.
cool. The second part of the question, like what role do the ghosts play in Adeline's life? They definitely are like
Like
guiding her.
protectors, yeah.
Yes. Yes, because Gigi, like whenever Zayd is like stalking her and stuff, Gigi is like breathing down his neck and
And
all
he's like, oh shit, get out of here.
yeah, he's like, leave, please. And the ghost does. But it's funny because like he never leaves. So like, why is he like, get out
Like,
of
who are
here?
you to like boss him around?
I know. But like, yeah, Gigi is like her protector, but also like guiding her to help like bring her murderer to justice and kind of solve her mystery there. They bring a comfort to Adeline and they guide her.
Which I think it kind of answers that third question too, why she's comfortable there and her mom's not. I think Adeline's experiencing like an ignorance is bliss type thing, where like her mom knows like what happened with Gigi and who killed her and like what her grandma did. And
Yeah.
so like she's just had very negative connotations to the house. Whereas Adeline is like she's obsessed with Gigi, like she had a great relationship with Nana, and so like she wants to have that connection with them.
Yes, she's like actively like seeking more like
Yeah.
connections. So yeah, that is a good point. Question number two. Do you think that Zayd had a plan going into stalking Adeline? Like, what could his plan have been?
I don't because he even says that he's never stalked anyone before. And so he was like, well, this is new to me. Like, we're just going to keep fucking doing it till something happens, I guess.
He's like, this
And
is
like,
kind of fun.
what I always had a question about was like, when did he initially plan to like make contact with her? Because like his hand was kind of played whenever Arch came over and he was like, I guess I gotta kill him now. Like,
Yeah, because like I told her I would.
and so do you feel like I wonder if he was going to like wait and like just continue kind of like making sure like she knew he was there because he also didn't make himself known until after that too. He'd start standing outside of her window after he killed Arch. And so
Hmm.
she was like, oh shit, he's like real. But before that, he was just sending her like the roses and stuff. So I
Yeah.
don't really know what his timeline was. And I don't think he did either because he's like, I am brand new to this, but I am going to make her mine somehow.
He was just playing it by ear. He was like, I'm just gonna have to be reactive instead of proactive because I don't know how to stalk a woman. And honestly,
Which
Adeline's
is
pretty
great.
unpredictable. So
True.
yeah, which is great that he's not like a
Love that.
multi-event stalker.
I do think it's like just so fucking scary though that like he was literally just planning on like going home and getting a burger like after like killing all these people.
Yes.
And he just happened to stumble upon that bookstore with her in there. And he's just like, yep, this is about to define me for the rest of my life. Like, I'm about to make this my personality.
And it's amazing because, like, if it had been like any other day and he walked into that bookstore, would he have had that reaction to her? Or like was it influenced by the like traumatic thing that he just did
I don't
and the
know.
state he was in, you know?
I think
Um,
it's absolutely wild.
it is. And that kind of leads us into our third question as well, because like Zaid obviously is a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He even acknowledges it at some points, but like it's like, does he realize the irony of taking down predators while behaving like one? Like, I think he does because he like states it. But like, is Zaid a self-aware psychopath? And like, can that exist in
Yes,
real life?
he's self-aware. I really do think he's self-aware, and he even says like he makes his own rules basically. And so like I think that's the biggest thing is that like psychopaths are like determined based off of like a group moral compass. Like so
Mm-hmm.
like they're defined more like by societal morals, whereas like he has like fully established like his own code here. And like I feel like he doesn't necessarily fall into like a psychopath like category, but he is definitely a little unhinged.
Yes. Because like I don't know, like I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist. Like I don't know how
I'm actually
to
gonna look it up. I'm
properly
not sure like
diagnose
what a
someone.
psychopath even means.
Yeah, like maybe let's get like an actual
Um,
definition.
psychopath. So a psychopath is a person suffering from chronic mental disorder or abnormal or violent social behavior. So it's an unstable and aggressive person informally, which I don't think he's unstable.
Yeah, because like he is very specific in the people that he targets.
Like
And
he's not just murdering people for fun.
yeah, because he's not a serial killer in the sense that he is targeting victims out of convenience or some sort of power imbalance, but he's targeting people who he perceives as wrongdoers.
And like with a sociopath, he doesn't really fall into that either because antisocial personality disorder, sometimes called sociopathy, is a mental disorder in which a person consistently shows no regard for right and wrong and ignores the rights and feelings of others. So he does ignore the feelings of others, but only when it comes to Adeline. And that's like a different thing. I think that's a control thing.
But at the same time, because like whenever
He
he
does
broke
ignore rights
in,
and wrongs.
yes, he does. And when he broke into her house and like went down on her, like he said he would, and she was like into it while it was going on, but then immediately he could tell she felt ashamed and like the look on her face changed because he was like, I was ready to risk it all. I was ready to fuck her, but the look on her face changed my mind. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
he has some sort of
Moral
regard for
compass.
her feelings, but obviously it is not, he is not sensitive. He is not a sensitive
So
person.
these are the signs of a sociopath: lack of empathy for others, impulsive behavior, attempting to control others with threats or aggression, using intelligence, charm, or charisma to manipulate others. Maybe Adeline's a sociopath.
A
Not
little.
learning from mistakes or punishment, lying for personal gain, and showing a tendency to physical violence and fights.
Okay, so he does exhibit some of those behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
but
So
I
does
think
Adeline, though.
he does have empathy. Yeah, Adeline exhibits less than he does, though, I would say.
He knows what empathy is. That's why he's saving those girls. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think he
Yeah,
just has tendencies.
he does have sociopathic tendencies. I do think that he acknowledges it fully. He's like, I am the way I am, and I wanted you to see me like at my worst so that you would know who I was. And
Like that is
Adeline's
just
like,
a bold
okay,
strategy.
it is, but I guess it kind of worked for
It did
him.
work.
Yeah, which we're
I
not
don't.
condoning trying that in real life. Don't do that.
This is a story.
This is a
Please don't
story.
stalk people.
Please don't stalk people, and please, if if you are like in a position where you are about to be physical with them and they are saying, I do not want to do this, then they are
They
not lying to
probably
you.
don't want to do it.
They're not lying to you unless you've exclusively discussed beforehand and like come up with a safe word and all sorts of stuff.
It reminds me of the Maid series, but we're gonna talk about the book, so we can't really talk about it now. But with like Mila,
Yes, 100%.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
we'll discuss.
will come up again.
We'll circle back. So we've kind of already answered this one a little bit, I think, but do you think Gigi's diary entries contributed to Adeline viewing her own stalker in a romantic light? Yes.
So, like, yes.
But also no.
Yeah, I think yes and no, because Gigi's stalker, then she was like, well, what if he killed her? Shit. But then she's like, I know Zayd won't hurt me. So I don't know.
I think it made her more receptive to it, but it also like that's also what made her very hesitant because she was like, he's gonna murder me just like Ronaldo did Gigi, even though Zayd said multiple times that he wouldn't, but also it's like I would also probably say that if I was going to kill some. I don't know.
Yeah, like it's not like a killer has to like legally tell you if they're gonna kill you.
Just say psych right now.
Yeah. So
yes, I do.
And no. The next question, do you think companies like Z exist in real life? And if they do you think that they make a major impact on sex trafficking?
Not to the extent of Z. I do feel like, okay, so like it kind of gives me like Ravenhood vibes, but like instead of instead of it being like taking down corporations, it's like sex trafficking. So I'm sure there are corporations like that out there. Unfortunately, I think with like the sex trade, there's just way too many people to keep track of. And it's like there's way too many people in higher positions to keep track of. And like I definitely do think there's the technology to do so. I think a big flaw that people make though is that they go public with it instead of keeping it on the DL like Z does. So like Ashton Kutcher has like a whole corporation that focuses on sex trafficking and like skin trade, but with him being such a high profile celebrity, like obviously people are going to take like extra measures to make sure they stay off the radar. And so I think there's almost a benefit to having like an underground corporation like that because people don't know anything about it, and I don't think that exists.
Yeah, because people like they didn't even know what Zayd looked like. Like they didn't have a face to put to a name. So I agree. It's like, yeah, that anonymity would give you a major like advantage and like you'd be able to infiltrate these types of things a lot more easily.
For sure.
But yeah, like I do appreciate celebrities though, at least like using their platform because like
for sure, yeah.
They can't like do things like Z does, but they can make a difference.
I do think that if a corporation like that existed or an organization is the word I'm looking for.
That is the word.
I do think if something like that existed, yeah, it would make a huge impact on sex trafficking, but it's just also such a freaking huge problem. And obviously, like, things like we didn't even know about, because like if Jeffrey Epstein hadn't slipped up just once and had been arrested for something that wasn't really even like fully tied to the full extent of what he was doing, like nobody would have known.
Yeah. And he would have just, everyone would have
and people would have just continued doing it.
And like I'm sure that the people who did not get like legally punished for that have found another way and are still doing it.
Which is how the society is. Like they just up and move. Like it's a constantly like moving organization, and
it's so freaking disturbing to me. And it's like it brings up kind of like a conversation like, were these people like this? Or is it like the money and the power that like
I think it's a power trip for them.
Yeah. It's like such a like psychologically interesting thing. Like what is wrong with these people and how do we fix it?
Well, and I'm a fucking like secret society hoe. Like I think like there are probably so many fucking different things like that we don't even begin to know about that probably do really sketchy stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when people were like super into like exposing like the Illuminati and everything? Like, I really
Hmm.
do feel like that's a huge cover for like a lot of smaller things happening that people get away with. Like,
Yeah, definitely. Because like if you have the means, like why wouldn't you do whatever you want to do? Like
right.
regardless of other people getting hurt.
Yeah,
Um,
it's wild.
it really is.
Um,
Um,
Last question I had, which you've already read the second book, so
mhm.
you already know what happens, but is Max actually involved in the sex trade? And that's who Jay and Zayd see at the end of the book, which plays into Adeline being kidnapped at the end as well. Because, like, you know how, like, at the end, Jay was like, "It's you?"
Yeah.
Like,
And
and then
Max this whole
immediately
time was
after,
like after Adeline and Daya and was like trying to
right.
target them.
Well, and we don't really know a lot about Max either, because, like, he was like the really weird, like Russian looking dude, right?
Hmm.
Um, we don't know a ton about him. And then at the very end, like whenever Adeline's kidnapped, they were like, "Hey, like let Max know that we have her." And so it's like, oh, I wonder if that like ties in with each other or if it's like two separate things.
Yeah, like I totally like obviously I know what does happen, but I can't wait to talk more about that like next week or not next week, the week after, whenever we
Mm-hmm.
cover
Hunting
hunting.
Adeline.
Hunting Adeline. I always get the titles messed up. But yeah, that's a really, really great like topic of discussion is Max's involvement.
I'm very interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah. I wish I could theorize more with you. Too bad I've already
I know
read
that was kind of
the
a
next
hard
book.
question for you.
Yeah. But that kind of wraps up like the discussion questions that we had for this particular book. Next week we will be covering
Part
more
two.
scary stories to tell in the dark. So get ready to be terrified.
Yes. And then after that, we'll be covering, like we said, the second book in the Cat and Mouse duet, Hunting Adeline, and then we're gonna wrap up the month with Goosebumps.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Halloween. It's my favorite time of the year.
You too.
So definitely stay tuned for those. Join us for all of those discussions. And as always,
Let's get lit.